challenge it too, right?
We did. We actually were one of the test cases. I got that out from Kansas, I believe it was.
Yes, right, yeah, remember, does
and,
and those materially make a difference?
Yes and no. Some people see them as a challenge. Some people see them as a deterrent. It just depends. We've had positive and negative feedback, but the thing about speed tables is they are technically supposed to be put every 300 feet. They're made for really longer roads, and I can tell you who has one. Was it Lake James over there off of Kempsville, across from the shopping center
I
there?
think on Lord, are they on Lord Dunmore too, I think?
They only have one.
Okay.
But they actually have the whole series going down that, and it works. But the thing is, they're supposed to be 300 feet apart. Aragona is not uniform. You know, we have oddity in the sizes of our lots and where the driveways are placed. So they can't do it by book. And one speed table, again, it's more of a challenge than a deterrent.
Okay, I'm just curious, because the people that are out there that are watching, is
Yes.
neighborhood speeding, I've often said neighborhood speeding is the neighbor speeding. It's generally speaking, not people coming from somewhere else. Generally speaking.
To catch speeding, you're going to have enforcement. And you're going to have to kind of have consistent enforcement. And I think the only way you're really going to achieve that in some of these neighborhoods without having a BBPD sitting out there 24/7 is to have cameras. I understand they did knock that down, the General Assembly. Our council people are going to try to have it brought back in the next session. They were kind of disappointed about that. But, you know, we keep asking. Eventually they'll get tired of us and do something.
Well, generally speaking, if you know what committee's in, if you know who chairs that committee in the General Assembly, that might explain why it doesn't move forward. You know, it doesn't take, only takes a few people who, for whatever reason, rural areas where they don't, you know, everybody has a different approach, and that General Assembly is a diversity of geography to be represented. It's a challenge. So anything else you'd like to share about, because I really, you know, have anybody approached you that after you heard about this, did they reach out to you, as since you're obviously a known advocate for the community, saying, hey, what's going on with this? And I'm just curious what people, I know what my reaction would be if someone said, hey, because once they mention your name, that isn't by accident. You know, and maybe it wasn't meant to be said and someone misspoke out of term when a lot more stuff's going on and they let trial go out of the bag early. So I'm just curious how people reacted to you when they heard. Did they call you? Did they? Well,
I made a Facebook post about it, and that got a little attention. It got a few conversations going. Robert contacted me, and I came to one of the breakfasts there and spoke on it. You know, and I've had most people was like, you know, hey, my property, you know, I bought it, I have a deed for it. I did not plan to live next to a hotel or a multifamily home. And they have their place and they are needed, but retrofitting an established neighborhood is just not good practice. I mean, if you're gonna pick on somebody, let's go to Witchport Point,
yeah,
or Bay Cliff, or Allenton. They have huge lots out there.
they do.
They can put like two
John
places next to each
About
other on
73.
one lot.
But this is a national movement. I mean, this is a national movement. It's an international movement against private property. In effect, I think this is not editorial, but it is a national movement.
It is.
Of these urban planners and people who think that, hey, if you have a big yard, you are consuming too much land. And you know, in England, they tax you extra. In the city of London, if you have unused bedrooms, you pay a bedroom tax because you are consuming more house. And we have people with bigger families that need your house, so you need to be giving up your house so they can move in. I mean, so this is all about, you know, our country was founded on property rights. So if they want to upzone your property, that's what they're going to say. They're upzoning it to make it more valuable. But in reality, that's not the value you bought.
No.
That's only up value from the eye of the person who wants to buy your property and to bulldoze your home and replace it with 2 or 3 or 4 homes, and probably more than 2, I suspect, in today's market. But maybe a quadplex. But the point being is, and they're all going to say this is on the banner of affordability, but they're disrespecting the property rights of the people that live there. And upzoning your property if you don't want it, which obviously you don't, isn't government acting in your best interest. You know, no one's volunteering to say, please upzone my property.
Well, I think government has its place, you know, they have their building and that's where they have, you know, the bulk of the city services, all just like our, you know, city complex down the south end there. But, I'm sorry, excuse me, we'll drop right here.
It's just fine.
But I don't think, excuse me, outside of that, city really, they need to stay in their lane and they don't need to be owning property. I know part of the
Amen.
affordable housing mandates there, one of the suggestions is to have land trust.
Yes, did you read the fine print, how they plan to finance that? They call it administrative fees. Did you see that little phrase?
I didn't catch that part.
Oh yeah, it means like when property changes hands, like with HRT, you'd be paying a tax, extra tax, and there'll be, so out of your capital gains on your home when you sell it, you're gonna pay a tax, and that's gonna go into a fund that allows them to buy land. But the interesting thing is we already have, and they wanna give that to the Development Authority. This state agency that doesn't have to do competition, isn't voted on or anything, but we already have the Virginia Beach Community Development Corporation already exists. It manages and owns 435 homes in Virginia Beach for affordability, and it manages 2 veterans facilities. And we have land, city land, right at Town Center, the old Circuit City
Yes, we
place.
do.
So if you're really interested in providing single person affordable workforce housing where people don't need transportation, close to the people that pay minimum wage or maybe up to $20 an hour maybe, which is not living wage jobs, that can come to your restaurant, come to your hotel, come to your retail, then why aren't you using the acres you already have and letting the Community Development Corporation go out and get lending and getting loans and do what? Because they're already in that business. So you don't need the Development Authority to do that. We have someone who already is charged with that, and the city owns land. So use the land that you have first that's strategically located. But the point being is, we don't need, like you said, government buying more land or a land trust where you're going to become a partner, and when they sell the home, you're going to get some of your money back, and all this. That's not, as you said, not the role of government. But this is all about creating work with taxpayers' money for select people to earn money and develop. That's what this is really, and to do that, they have to convert your neighborhood into duplexes because there's no more raw land that's mostly not around Oceana, which no one's going to be building on that. So
They tried that, it didn't work.
yes, right. And south of the Green Line, we don't need to be going there. So we are kind of like a country. We've got our boundaries are boxed in. What we have is what we have, and some people don't like that.
Do you see them going south of the Green Line?
Well, good question. Certainly, if you are the current mayor and the current council, with the exception of Barbara Henley, they already voted to go south of the Green Line with Silo at Southern Pines.
That is true.
Now, technically speaking, the parking lot is what's south of the Green Line, not the actual units. But those units are on the other 3 acres north of the Green Line, and it's 56 units are per acre on those 3 acres. That's what it is per acre. 179 units on 3 acres, and the parking lot is but they had to rezone the parking lot to make that happen. So they've already established, but they didn't actually have to extend utilities south of the Green Line. That Green Line policy, you may call, I know you do, is that the policies were not going to extend public utilities south of the Green Line. That's what we're doing. Well, I see we have a comment and a question from our audience.
No, actually, John, it's a technical comment.
Oh.
we're having a problem with VB Liberty. So I've switched over and gone to my Facebook Live page, Robert K. Dean on Facebook. We're trying to correct this thing. I think it's outside forces by the Virginia Beach Economic Development Authority. Is trying to come in here. And I apologize. I don't know what happened. I think Phil Hines came in and some other people.
Blame it on the Chinese.
Yeah. I didn't know Phil was Chinese. But anyhow, yeah. It's,
Japanese, actually.
so we're trying to get it corrected. So just go to Facebook and type in Robert K. Dean and it'll come up. And I apologize.
Well, this has been a great conversation, but yes, I do think because they realize under the stormwater management, all the issues they have, the cost of developing in that area of the city is quite high for infrastructure because you have to deal with all that stormwater, where the water table is, and all those issues.
And you have to put sewer and everything out there too. Most of that's on well, isn't it?
Well, if you go south, the sewer, that's why that's the big part. So, but you have remember you have the land use plan today. You have what they call central city, the central part of the city.
Mm-hmm.
Then you have the transition area, which was created from the old green line to the new green line. That's where Asheville Park and Sherwood Lakes are located on, right? That's the transition area. And then beyond, then you call Indian River Road to Pungo Light. South of that and going up and going around by the Municipal Center is the new green line that was established when the transition area was created. But developing down there is problematic due to stormwater issues. Raises the cost significantly to build, and plus that's not the greatest soil for putting a big load on. For the most part, a lot of that soil is not load bearing, so you are limited on what you can do with that soil, unless you're on that Pungo Ridge. So there's a lot of complications, but let's hope. But certainly, I think there's people who would like to go south. You know,
Sure.
but question.
Yeah, John. We had a comment from a viewer. Who is subsidizing the affordable housing? Is it the government?
Well, the government doesn't ever subsidize anything because it comes from the taxpayers. So, gives the example. If someone says we're going to give someone a grant to buy first buyer, someone's paying for that. And if it's a local government, the public voted against the Redevelopment Housing Authority. We had a referendum on that, and they voted against it. So mostly the stuff today that finances what you would call quote unquote affordable housing, and that's defined by HUD as being people aren't going to pay more than 30% of their gross income, household income, on rent. When in reality, if you're at 30%, that's still stressful because most mortgage companies want your mortgage to be like 20% ideal, but people are doing as much as 45%. But nonetheless, they go and they issue this. They can couple of programs. One is people get an actual voucher, the voucher program, where people get money, a stipend, and it's paid directly to the rental company. Mm-hmm. That program hasn't grown much over the years. You got to wait a long time to get into that program. There's a waiting
like
list.
2 or 3 year waits on
at
those
least.
lists.
Then there's the one where the people go out and get a below market rate loan rate, and before all the interest rates went up, that was about 4.25%, and they would be a tax exempt bond, and they would issue bonded debt. That's the federal tax code, and in return, they would have to set so many units aside for people that make up to 130% of the median MSA, statistical metropolitan area median family income. And for our area, the median for the area is much lower than the median income in Virginia Beach. So that's a big differentiation and causes issues in of itself. And then, for example, usually it's somewhere between 10 and 20%. In some cases, that loan can be for the life of the loan, and sometimes they only have to keep those units affordable for 10 years. It all depends on the structure and the nature, and those are federal tax credits. And often the Virginia Beach Housing Development Agency also is involved, and because those are tax exempt, obviously that makes it pension funds and other places like to buy these, are people who have high marginal tax rates, or effective tax rates, I should say, buy them because also they'll be exempt from federal tax, and that makes it profitable for them to own. So that's where most of the assistance comes today. But mostly what you see people building because of the experience they had with not being able to evict people in those federally backed loan apartments.
Mm-hmm.
Most people today are building more places with conventional loans, and they're building mostly luxury apartments because they have a bad taste in their mouth from the rent moratorium that went on for close to 2 years, in some cases longer, and they couldn't get people evicted, but they were still having to make their financial payments. So there hasn't been as much attractiveness of those loans as in the past. It's a long answer, but it's a very complicated issue.
John, from a personal note, after World War II, my father went on Korea. When he come back, we bought a home on Southgate at Craddy Corner across the street from GEX. Remember GEX?
I do remember GEX. That's the site of the old Chinese corner, and the racetrack was there.
Exactly right. And it was the government employees exchange.
Correct.
You had to pay, just sort of like Sam's Club and that. Well, I guess my question is, what is pushing all these increases in assessments? I mean, is this all artificial? Is this going to come crashing down? Because I know we do have an appraiser sitting in the audience right now that could possibly answer that.
Here's what's in May of 1970. Take that $10,000. Today, in May of 2024, to have the equivalent purchasing power of that $10,000 in May of 70, you'd have to have over $81,000. So if you want to know what's causing the values of assets to go up, it's the depreciation of the currency. Clear and simple. It's about depreciating about 15% a year recently. That's the purchasing power. So when you have inflation, assets go up with inflation. And that's building supplies, you name it. But what doesn't go up is if you don't have assets, which most people trying to be first buyers are not enjoying lots of assets. So they don't have anything inflating with income, right? So assets are going with inflation. So they're maintaining their real value, but that real value is the same value before the inflation. So that house might be $400,000, but the money supply is doubled or tripled. Its real value in terms of something that didn't go up, like gold, would be the same amount of gold would buy that house today as would have bought it 20 years ago, which is actually a true story. Actual fact. So that's what got up. The real inflation, not the government inflation, but the inflation salaries. Because if your income's being depreciated 15%, purchasing power, and you got a 6% raise, you're falling behind. That's like keeping money in the bank. When they had low interest rates during 2% loan, you were falling behind. So if you want to look fundamentally at these things, it is depreciation of the purchasing power of American families. And since they don't know, but their home's gone up. But if they went to sell that home, it still knows to replace that same home. They couldn't afford to buy the home they're in. And that's because the nominal value is up, because inflation adjusted, but their incomes aren't. But what's getting them? The cost of ownership. Once they buy the house, can they afford to maintain it? Because, the roof's you gotta have a $15,000 air conditioner. You're gonna have, next thing you know, seniors' homes, they didn't even get their HVAC replaced or fixed. It's still broken. But they're in a home that has an HVAC system, it's just not a fixed home. So that, if you're looking at fundamentally, it is, you said who pays? You run a deficit, it's the lowest income people who suffer from inflation because they don't own assets and they don't own income producing assets. And even if you have a portfolio for your pension, retirement, unless you're cashing it out, it doesn't do anything but your income while you're working, because that's for when you're not working. Mm-hmm. So the total cost of ownership of a home has just exploded beyond, and there's no simple solution, but ultimately somewhere in there the bubble pops, but the bubble doesn't pop on the cost of maintaining your home. And guess who loves to have assets go up? Who benefits from inflation? City does. Their income went up. And they don't care that your income didn't go up. They don't care that your house doesn't produce any income. That's not their problem. They want their money. Now they could index the tax rate to inflation,
For what?
such that to say, oh, this is, and I'm talking about wage, like, you know,
Right.
Social Security uses that 3 months, you know, I think it's July, August, and September. I think that's the 3 months they use for the wage and coincident index. Don't hold me to that, but I think that's correct. So that's 3.2% or 3%. And that's all you get for, they're on the same income growth rate that the people are. So they get the 7%, the 9%, or in some cases, the tax rate goes up 7%, but your assessment went up 20%. And so that's what the people are being taxed out, is because government is not tempering its budget to reflect families' budgets.
Yes.
Lorraine, how are you getting the message out to all of your residents in your Civic League? How many homes are there now?
2,989 as of the last neighborhood report.
How are you disseminating all this sinister thing that may be underway? How are you getting this out?
Well, we have a Facebook page,
Okay.
Aragona Village Civic League, and but you do have to live in Aragona to be a part of that group there.
Okay.
But we do have a website, and we just spruced it up, and AragonaVillageCivicLeague.com. We have Jericho Road on there. It even has its own little page within our website. But and we are getting ready to probably add a feature page to that as well. Just got revamped.
Very nice.
You know, and it will have items of this nature. We have an email list. We also send information out too, and so we just started an Instagram page as well. So we're really doing our best. Mailing has now become a challenge again because of the rise in postal rates. I think the last time we actually sent a newsletter, it was probably close to about $1,200.
Yeah, we've gone,
Printing wasn't the problem; it was the postage.
We've got the hand delivering.
Well,
But
when you get 3,000,
that's not doable, but the email might be. Now you have a candidates forum coming up in September. You might want to talk a little about, because that's open to the public. You might
Yes,
want to
September what?
That'll be September, I believe, the 9th, the second Monday in September. 6:30, Christ Presbyterian Church. I'm inviting all the mayoral candidates for Virginia Beach, and we have been to most of our forums. We give candidates a chance to introduce themselves and their platforms, and then we can give them some questions.
And that's located at the corner
Of Aragona and Wichita.
Say it again.
6:30, I believe it's September 9th, it's the second Monday in September.
And it's at where?
Christ Presbyterian Church, 709 Aragona Boulevard, 23455. And that's the corner of Wichita and Aragona.
It's adjacent to the Woodlawn Cemetery,
And we usually have fun.
Veteran Cemetery.
Yes.
You know, at a minimum, we'll have popcorn. So.
Oh, so it's not going to be one of those hot things outside
No.
in the gazebo. It's going to be okay.
No. Well, the gazebo is gone. Actually, the storm took that out a couple of years ago.
What?
The windstorm we had, a big tree that was next to it blew down on top of the gazebo and the church, and the gazebo was beyond repair. So they went ahead and took it down, and even did some damage to the roof of the church, and they finally got that fixed.
What kind of percentage increase in insurance did, because you know, Aragona is not very susceptible to flooding, but I'm just curious, what percentage increase, you know, you don't have to get personal, but if you just give a range of just what insurance, homeowners insurance increase it percentage-wise, people
Oh,
experience.
mine's pushing in the 2000s now, where it used to be lower than that. In fact, I had a chat with my insurance agent this time. I said, wow. Yeah, and that's along with auto and everything else. And
Would you say 10% or 5 or $50 a month, $40 a month, you know, noise level a month?
I went from about $1,600 to about $2,000 in 1 year. So that's about a $400 increase.
Well, that's about $35.
Significant. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was. It was a shock to me.
Did they ask you about your roof, the age of your roof or anything?
No, but I did have a talk with a newer agent I have. My other one left the company, but she was saying, you know, I said, you know, I'm just going to start shopping around. She said, you can. She said, but she said, I'm not saying this to tell you just to stay with us. She said, but we are getting ready to drop anybody that's within 5 miles of the waterfront.
5 miles.
Wow, it used to be 1,000 feet.
Yeah, because of the probability of paying out a catastrophic amount due to storm damage.
Well, you're definitely, parts of Aragona are definitely within 5 miles.
Mm,
Of the Lynn River.
We're almost, but we're just about 5 miles from Chesapeake Beach.
Okay.
You know, we're definitely safe from the ocean front, but yeah. And I've seen more than enough posts of people saying, you know, wow, my insurance company just canceled me. I've been a faithful customer for years. Outer Banks is really bad down there.
Yeah,
So many people are pulling out of all the beachfront properties.
Yeah, I've heard some tough stories. I've known a number of people whose insurance companies have told them that for us to renew your policy, you have to replace your roof. Yeah, question from our.
No, it's actually it's a comment from Diana Howard, the chairman of the Virginia Beach Tea Party. The Tea Party is having a mayoral forum on August the 8th at 7 p.m. at the Masonic Lodge at 2849 Princess Anne Road.
That is very good. Thank you, Robert. Thank
Yes,
you,
sir.
Diana.
And of course, Mr. Moss, you'll be there, correct?
That is correct.
I know it's not we don't push any candidate here. It's just a matter of public notice that
All candidates
all
should be
candidates
there.
will be there. Yes.
But I do know, but we do have another person you mentioned before who's here, and he's and we invite people to come here, so it's not like he had a special invitation. Robert has an open door policy, but Phil Hines is here. He lives in Thalia, and of course that's a neighborhood that has a colorful history. Thalia, Cedar Road was had a madam's house back in the day, right there on Cedar Lane. Everybody knows where that is. And then there's still a surviving barracks building that's over in the neighborhood too, from the prisoner of war camp. Someone lives in it today as a home. So and where he lives now used to be a golf course in the 50s. So I think precedents have changed, but I would suspect they wouldn't be overly excited about having their single-family neighborhood be turned into duplexes. And you're involved with the Civic League there. Do you hold a position with the Civic League there?
Vice President of the Civic League.
Oh, well then you can speak in that regard, not as a candidate. But if you
Do
want
you need this
It
microphone?
just a little bit closer, please.
but you might want to share what you've been communicating to your neighborhood about.
Yeah.
And I want to make clear, this isn't something that has happened. This is probably something that probably the council members wish that District 4 council member had made more publicly and injected into the conversation. I think something got revealed that wasn't meant to be revealed yet, but it's out there now, and clearly it didn't happen by accident. And I think you probably have had maybe conversations with people in the community where this is something they think this is the only solution, but that's because it's a checkbook solution for them. So,
Yeah, I mean, almost overwhelmingly, anyone I talk to is first off shocked to hear that this is something that can happen. But when I explain to them, you know, in certain states across the country, single-family zoning has been banned. I believe, you know, California, Illinois is looking at doing it. In Portland, I think you can't have a house larger than 5,000 square foot. But locally, in Charlottesville, Arlington, Alexandria, they've outlawed single-family zoning, but it didn't happen overnight. It happened methodically over the last 7-8 years, and now they have it. So, you know, what it means is you can have a 5 to 8 unit apartment complex next door. And so most people, you know, it's not here. People, you know, when I talk to them, they're just stunned, you know, but the truth is, you know, people are taking their eye off the ball, and maybe they're being misled because of other things, but this is really one of the biggest issues we face as a community, and, you know, more people just need to pay attention to it.
Lorraine, how many homes have you bought so far?
Personally?
Yeah.
2.
Oh no, okay, you haven't got into it yet. Buying the homes for redevelopment.
Oh.
That's a little humor.
well, the good news is at least you know how many.
That's right.
Well, it's important to know that a good percentage of the single-family homes are rental. I think it's not a majority, but it's nationwide, it's about 30%, probably slightly lower in Virginia Beach maybe, but nationwide it's like a 30%. And most of them outside of these hot spots like Houston for the institutional investors that are big, they're mostly mom and pop operators. You know, people that own like, you know, average 4 or 5 homes. There's not like there are whole subdivisions like they build out in Arizona and they're all rentals. So this is, which gives you less price fixing, so to speak, and there's a lot smaller scale. But but the institutional buyers tend to really drive up the price of even rents because of how they manage rents. But also the high military here also has a factor of housing allowance and all stuff. And of course, appreciation rates makes more people want to rent than buy if they're not going to be here longer because it takes much longer to own to not have a negative return.
John, I would add, you know, I think it's important for anybody, ask their council men or councilwoman, you know, how they feel about zoning overlays, what they, you know, think about the banning of single family. Yeah, I just think that's important. Everyone should ask the people that are currently in office, and then, you know, obviously ask the candidates too. I'm going to wager that, you know, some of them may not even be aware of it. Some of them may be aware of it and want to play dumb. But I think that's super important. And it's, you know, do we need to add to the housing supply? I think we do. I think we could start with looking at accessory dwelling units as long as we do it responsibly. I'm okay with that. And again, I keep talking about the VB Trail, you know, like you said, build some housing at the old Circuit City building right along the future site of the Virginia Beach Bike Trail, and redevelop some of the old aging strip malls responsibly.
What about the old printing plant at Virginia Pilot sold?
Yeah.
That's over on the railroad track.
Yep.
That's big industrial
Yeah.
building. And then there was that big building over in the industrial park, maybe it's airport controlled, and that had the dirt floor that never ever got used for something else.
Baker Road.
Baker Road, that's it. So I think we need to be looking at, you know, and there are some really failing shopping centers. You know, I think that people can't argue about the Pembroke Square and tons of apartments. Now, the city's involvement in it.
How many of them are affordable?
No.
That's gonna be the question.
Well, none of those are gonna be affordable, just like that assisted living is. You can't, you know, and I think someone would tell you today, giving the price of land and the price of materials and everything else, and how those have risen much faster than labor, even at lower interest rates, I don't know that you can build something that's relative to someone's income and say, that's affordable. I think you'd be hard for, so that means why the housing stock we need to preserve is the housing stock we have is the most affordable housing that we have.
Well, and you have to talk about jobs as it relates to affordability is relative. You know, for someone that could be 600,000, or for someone else it's 200. So we have to be thinking about attracting new business and retaining them with not just seasonal tourist jobs.
Well, that's a double-edged sword, because when Silicon Valley attracted a lot of jobs, they priced out everybody. The jobs that they attracted were so high-paying, they priced everybody else out of their own community. So it really is, you gotta be careful. That's why Nashville fought against that Amazon. Remember we were supposed to go to Nashville? They said it was gonna be such a big change, it was gonna have a disproportionate increase in housing costs, and they'd be pricing out their existing residents because they could not grow inventory as fast. I mean, who work in DC. Why? Well, because the salaries in DC are so high, but if you have to live inside the Beltway, they're not high enough to live there. So people want a single-family home, they don't want a condo, so they trade off commute for quality of life.
Well, they want a more peaceful suburban lifestyle.
Correct, which we
Right.
already have in Virginia Beach.
But it's being threatened.
It is under
And so-
attack.
And that's the one thing too is, and you probably know this too, being in business, the notion that younger people just want small homes and don't want space is completely the opposite of what I see every day, which is people want a bigger home because they need one for their home office, and then now their kids are, you know, doing hybrid sometimes, and then maybe they want a home gym if the gyms get shut down again, and everyone's got a dog, so they want a yard. I mean, I don't know most people unless they're downsizing because they're retiring that they want less yard space. A lot of, people want us to do more gardening now. So the push for small lot sizes doesn't really reflect what I see in the marketplace. We do need to add more housing supply. Let's do it in the right areas, but you can't, go back and, like you said, retrofit neighborhoods. Because again, if you start in Aragona, what's next? Pembroke Meadows, Talia, Birchwood. I don't know where it goes from there.
Well, I
So,
think this is a good community discussion, and that's why I think when we look at places that are now in B2, because clearly the demand for retail space, it's a structural change. It's just a decline. I mean, it's not coming back. And office too. So we overpaid for a big office building. The city did. It was presidential by a long shot. That's another story. But so we have to be looking about where we own property. For example, we own that property on the old Nike site. Most people don't realize we have an air missile defense
Parks and
site
Rec.
off of South Independence, right? Going into Salem Woods. We own all that land there where Parks and Rec is. Well, maybe we should be moving Parks and Rec, that's just warehouse space, to land that we have somewhere else. And we have land elsewhere, and relocate that, and once again, another opportunity, because it's shopping's there, this there, that's there. And once again, Community Development Corporation could be looking at that land and working with the private sector to build what we don't probably have enough of is affordable apartments for single people. That is a real shortage. Are we coming close on time there? I don't.
Yeah, we're a little over, but I had some comments come in.
All right.
They're proposing town centers all over Virginia Beach connected by transit light rail. That was from Diana Howard. Martha Thorold from North Beach said, I guess they're talking about this, what's going on out there right now with the housing that. They did it at the North Beach. So I'm assuming they're talking about.
Well, North Beach was because they had a by right to do that. It wasn't an overlay district. And this new comp plan really affected comments about, but these are all these city centers.
Right.
And guess what? None of that stuff can happen without tremendous public debt being issued to subsidize with structured parking.
Oh, absolutely.
And it's not gonna lower anyone's taxes, or anything of that nature. It's just gonna permit, and I'm not even certain it will ultimately, even when it will generate property that in the unrestricted general fund, but it is the urban densification and basically the undoing of our suburban quality of life here. I can't express it any other way. The public said no to light rail. They want to bring it back, have a referendum on it. Let's have a public discussion. But they couldn't make the SGAs work because why? The private sector won't pay the capital cost of doing it because there's no pricing profit to make it work. And that vision, I call it fatal vision, of urbanologists and social engineers and privateered moneyed interest want to make a profit financed by taxpayers. And that's not the role of government. The private sector won't build it, we shouldn't be involved.
For the federal government, the city matched it with, I think, about $4 million. So it's going to be from Newtown Road to Town Center with a pedestrian bridge over Independence Boulevard. So it is happening. It's just going to take a few years.
And John, finally, we're running over the new $20 minimum wage in California. I just saw this morning. The fast food restaurants and restaurants in general have all cut back on their hours now because they can't afford the $20 an hour.
Get all these special services. Who pays for that? It's not so much minimum wages wrong, but how do you make the people that pay the wages they do bear the cost of the externalities of that low wage that then makes those people entitled to public benefits? That's the economic question, is how to make those businesses internalize those externalities that they don't pay. That's the economic challenge.
There is no balance.
It's hard.
There is no balance.
Life is not perfect. My dad used to say,
His home is being impacted by the so-called wall of debt known as the Atlantic Park.
us doctors will be talking about, let's make the earth spin around again.
Yeah.
All right.
Everybody have a great night. Thank you, Lorraine. Everybody.